John Woods here, Montgomery County Tea Party. We are here with Brian Boniface, and he's running for the Woodlands Township Director, position 2. And with me is Dale Fessenden, Bob Bagley, John Boucher, Larry Rogers, Dennis Tibbs, and Pat Tibbs. And as we talked about, Brian, you want to kick it off, and you have up to 5 minutes in your open.
Absolutely. So my name is Brian Boniface, and like John said, I'm running for re-election to position 2 on the Board of Directors for the Woodlands Township. These past 2 years have been insightful, educating, awesome, very happy to be a resident advocate working for our residents. To give you a little bit of background about my life, I moved here in 2005 with my wife. We got engaged up in Massachusetts where we were living. Her parents had moved down to the Woodlands in 1998 with Hewlett-Packard, and he was an executive with them. When we decided to get married, we decided that we wanted to raise our kids in the Woodlands because we had visited and it was very nice. So we came down here, got married over at St. Simon and Jude, and had a reception at the Resort and Conference Center. We planted our roots here, bought our first house, had some kids. We have 2 daughters. My oldest is Samantha, she's 11 years old, and my youngest is Rachel, she is 9. They both attend school here in the Woodlands, excellent accredited schools. We really love this community. As a professional, I am a registered nurse. I did 3 years of psychiatric nursing up in Conroe. I've just been accepted into an operating room nurse position with Conroe Regional Medical Center, which I'm starting next month, which I'm very excited about. In addition to that, I've been in the, I was in the National Guard for 6 years as an infantry officer and got out in 2015. And earlier this year, I actually recommissioned with the Army Reserves. They had an Army shortage and, or officer shortage, I'm sorry. And they were looking for some people to come and help fill the ranks because they were in need. So I stepped up and now being rebranched as a logistics officer on the unit right off of Franklin Road. So that's a little bit about me. My first 2 years of experience has been, like I said, it was amazing. We have some great board members who are very focused on lowering property taxes, making sure our debt stays within manageable limits, and actually put money aside to reduce our debt when it becomes callable. A couple of the initiatives that we're really proud about is our flood reaction to Hurricane Harvey. We actually were able to contract right away with Waste Management to help our residents out in Tiburon and Creekside. Some of those people needed some help picking up their mucked out houses real fast, and Gordy Bunch led the initiative, and we all supported him during that effort to help our residents. It was a real quick contract with Waste Management. They were very flexible in helping us out. In addition to that, we've made it a point to really study incorporation. One of the big items that kind of pushed me to do the election originally was the Woodlands Parkway extension. And one of the things we noted that was, as a township, we don't have much leeway on stopping any kind of HGAC or county-controlled road projects. So incorporation was an avenue that we looked at and researched that could actually potentially give us the chance to stop those kind of road projects, such as Shenandoah with their, I believe it was a Grove's Mill extension. So that's one of the things that we've dedicated our community to. We have an impactful study going on right now, laying it out with our residents, what to expect, how much it's going to cost, scope of services, because we don't want any of our services to go down. We actually have a forum coming up here where the consultants are actually going to present and give out some really good information. And probably one of the coolest things that we did was we actually got the state legislature to pass legislation that is our incorporating legislation, which gives the residents the vote on whether we incorporate or not. It's not up to the board of directors, it's not up to a bunch of bureaucrats, it's actually up to the residents. And if they decide to, at that time they actually vote on their tax rate. So they will have all the information. Last time we ran, there was a big scare campaign out there about how your taxes are going to go up 73%. They were just trying to scare everybody out of their pants about incorporation, that we're rushing to it. I think that what you've seen is that we've had a very thoughtful, processed plan on how we're going to answer all the questions that come with it. And we have a forum, 2 public comment sections every board meeting and planning session where people can come and discuss their concerns and questions. And we are as transparent as possible. So I'm really proud of those initiatives that we've done, and I'm looking for 2 more years to make sure we see this thing through to fruition. Whether it's good for us or bad for us, I just want to see it through to the end.
And the big forum's on September 25th at the Woodlands Waterway at 6:30.
Yes, 6:30.
That is to discuss incorporation.
It is a public forum. The consultants will be out there putting out all the information and responding to any kind of resident input or requests.
what would be the next steps after that?
After that, we're gonna start,
If it goes through.
if it goes, like if we incorporate or for the consultant.
Yeah, for incorporation.
So incorporation, we're gonna weigh it, we're gonna look at what the numbers look like, see if it's financially feasible, because if it's not in our best interests as a community, then we need to really weigh the pros and cons. And we need to let our residents know what the pros and cons are, and then leave that decision up to them, whether they think it's more beneficial to incorporate, or if they wanna stay as a township. Each one has its own advantages, so I think as far as determining our own future, incorporation is probably the way to go.
Okay, I've found your response to the, what 3 changes would you like to see implemented in the township? Kind of interesting, none that you can think of. So, the board is perfect, or the township is perfect?
The township's actually run very effectively. Our budget just won budgeting office just won a award for financial transparency, which is like, I think, #1 in the state. We lowered our tax rate to the effective tax rate. We're operating at such a great level for residents that I believe it's 89% of our residents feel that their tax dollars and the level of service they're getting are in line. We work well together as a board. So that question was very tough to come up with any kind of downfalls. Yes, we have challenges that come up, but we always rise to the challenge.
Okay, so,
It was kind of a vague question in general as far as, when you're looking for something to kind of put on the township that isn't running too well, because all our processes are open and transparent, so we try to respond to the needs of the residents and we get things fixed, so.
okay, so when residents do come and address the board, what is the kind of things you hear most often?
Sometimes it can be neighbor issues, it can be, we had, the monster house that was in development for about 3 years, things like that. So we hear those kind of issues. We heard a lot about flooding with Hurricane Harvey. We heard about St. Anthony Padua. You might remember with the residents over on Lower Hurst having issues with them. So really what we do is we go in and we solve problems. For instance, with the DSC issue with the residents on Lower Hurst and St. Anthony's, we actually appointed 2 of our board members, meeting one of them to the DSC, and we went in there and we helped resolve and get that problem taken care of, so that both the church and the residents were happy. So
Is that finalized?
it's good.
And the DSC is what?
It's the Design Standards Committee. So we cover all the covenants when people need variances on certain to the standards and covenants. They come to us and we either approve or deny it, both on the corporate and the residential side.
Okay.
Your answer that you had here, should the township be funding nonprofit organization events such as interfaith luncheons, senior pickup services, education for tomorrow luncheons, etc. with tax dollars? And you said that the township is obligated to fund certain nonprofit
Yes.
organizations as agreed upon in federal grants?
Mm-hmm. We do get FTA grants for certain
What type of grants?
What's the acronym?
Federal Transportation Administration grants.
Okay.
They
Remember later.
Oh, yeah, sorry, that's good. We do get FTA grants for certain services for instance, we have the trolley service, which is partly funded by those grants, and part of the agreement with the grants is that we do provide certain services like the senior rides. So we do have some obligations there based on money that we receive from the federal government.
I've been involved in all this Woodland stuff for a long time as well with you, Brian. What is your biggest concern regarding incorporation?
My biggest concern is that the price tag's gonna be too big. This is, incorporation it's a hot button issue because you have a lot of people who have really strong feelings for it and really strong feelings against it, and there's a lot of people in the middle. So if you look at it like a tipping scale, the way it goes, as we slowly start learning different pieces, for instance, tonight we learned about the MUDs. One of the things we didn't know prior to getting the ball rolling on this is how we were going to incorporate the MUDs if we decide to become a city from a township. Would we have to take 1 or 2? Could we take 1 or 2? Would we take them all? Would we take none? Well, it's kind of cleared out that we'd have to take all or none, because it would be, you'd have certain ones getting a township, or Woodlands service rate versus another one, like a Mud 1 who has pretty much paid off all their debt versus Mud 386 who still has millions of dollars worth of debt. So it's going to be an all or nothing thing. So as these things start coming out, the price tag goes up. So I think that's going to be part of the public information process of educating our residents about what those costs are. We've had enough foresight though that we've put money away in the budget for an incorporation reserve to kind of buffer a lot of the costs that are going to be incurred if and when we do decide to incorporate. So it's been a lot of foresight there to take care of that, but and if it doesn't work out, all those funds will be pretty much going to pay down debt. So it's not like it's going anywhere into like a slush fund or anything for other projects.
Is there going to be a reallocation of hotel taxes in that process? What do you think the economic impact of that might be?
We actually put it in our legislation that the hotel income tax will continue going forward if we incorporate.
But it will be reallocated to the Woodlands instead of the outgoing as it has been, is that correct?
Are you talking about the CDV or?
The hotel taxes, as I understand it, are levied and those are not retained by the Woodlands at this point, or not all of them.
Oh, no, we get them.
Okay,
We do. And we will retain them if we incorporate.
excellent.
We do send a certain percentage over to the Woodlands Convention and Visitors Bureau, who then entices corporations to send they have their conferences and things here so that they come use our hotels, spend their money in the Woodlands, and that overall increases sales tax and the hotel occupancy taxes and lowers our property tax because we can offset some of those with those revenues.
Excellent.
What's your gut feeling at this point on the incorporation?
I'm actually pretty optimistic, and the reason I'm optimistic is because there was a $250,000 campaign to make sure certain people weren't elected 2 years ago, and it failed, and by quite a large margin. I think a lot of people who got the real wake-up call when they voted overwhelmingly to get rid of the Woodlands Parkway extension, only to find out that people are still fighting for it.
Yeah.
And they say, well, we're not going to pay to develop that, but somebody is.
Okay.
So.
Next question. In 1975, apparently George Mitchell contracted with the San Jacinto River Authority to supply the water.
Mm-hmm.
Explain what you know about that and what you would change about that.
Well, I remember reading an article about how water wars are going to be the next big thing coming to Texas, and to me, it's a property rights issue. You have these property owners who have water on their land. That's theirs. That's theirs to develop, and I think that these conservation districts that are started can kind of get in the way of that. And trying to put out percentages when, I read a study from Texas A&M that said we have, I believe, over 200 years worth of water in the ground that we can use, and they're trying to force us to pay exorbitant fees through the SJRA for surface water. To me, it doesn't bode well. I used to pay my mud bill every 2 months, and it was about $20 to $30. Now I pay it every month, and it's about $100. I don't think I
Maybe
flush
we'll
the
get some
toilet
good people
anymore.
on board.
Yes.
I have a question about the homestead exemption.
Yes.
What the homestead exemption does is give homeowners a benefit that commercial and industrial and institutional property owners don't get. So what does the Woodlands have that could possibly be better than that for residents?
You have a financial accounting mechanism that we actually did a financial analysis on what a 20% homestead exemption would be for our residents, and we found out that we are so efficient with the way we run the township and our taxation that it would actually put us in deficits if we decided to do that. And if you do a
That
side by
would be bad for the township, not for the residents.
both, because if you do a side-by-side scenario of what people were originally taxed at, we've been reducing taxes from 32 cents on the 100 down to now what we have at it's 22.76 cents on the 100. If you had put in a 20% homestead exemption at that 32, you'd actually be paying more in taxes right now than you would be where we're at right now. We have been cutting and cutting, and we are the only taxing entity that has been cutting like crazy as these appraisals keep going up. And you disagree?
But what you're saying is the 20%
Montgomery,
right now You're saying the 20% compared to what the taxes used to be would
Yes.
not be as good. But if you gave 20% right now to a homeowner, they would be better off than they were without the 20% right now.
Not in the long term, because if you look at our long-term projections for what we're operating, you have to understand, the Woodlands is not 100% built out yet.
Mhm.
So the developers still have a lot of stuff that they're paying for, that we take over time. Streetscape maintenance in certain newer areas. There's a lot of money that is gonna be put into the operating funds going forward. So if we started saying, okay, we're gonna go ahead and put a 20% homestead exemption in there, that's gonna, our 5-year outlook, it's gonna put us in the red, very far.
It's gonna hurt the township, but not the people.
It hurts the people, it's gonna impact their quality of life and their services. And as I mentioned earlier, the most recent survey said that 89% of our residents are happy with their level of taxation and the quality of service. That, I mean, I can't even find another community to match that.
And you say that you do offer benefits for disabled and residents. Is that the freeze that, for instance, the county has, or is that just exemptions?
They're just the exemptions. And one of the things that we actually discussed tonight about incorporation is homeowners in the Woodlands, if we do decide to incorporate and we go with the home rule charter after general law, one of the things we want to put in there is to freeze for 65 and above, like whatever they're paying, it's frozen, they don't never pay $1 more.
School districts and counties do.
Right.
I think Lone Star College maybe
Mhm.
does now.
Yep. So that's one of our big initiatives out there. Because no one should lose their homes from crazy appraisal values going up.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they talked to our county governance up there in Conroe Road too about that. What are your thoughts? Thanks for that. What are your thoughts about the RUD, W-RUD?
W-RUD.
The Woodlands
Woodlands
Road
RUD.
Utility District.
So with these road utility districts, I believe there needs to be sunset legislation to where communities can actually get rid of some of these special districts and have a way to unhinge themselves from them. You know, they're kind of created in less than optimal ways. Sure you're all familiar with Adrian Heath.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's kind of, and I've actually talked to some representatives up in Austin about this and said we need to come up with a way to do it, but they said the pushback is so bad because lobbyists, obviously, that it's a money thing. But there needs to be some legislation in there to sunset them. Because, I mean, they can be a benefit to your community when, you know, if you're a small community first coming up, you know, it's a way to get some funds and do things, but once they become ingrained in your community, there's no way to get rid of them.
It's the
So,
closest thing to eternal life.
yes,
I heard perpetual motion, same thing.
perpetual motion.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go for round 2 on this. Enjoyed your answer for which current township board member do you identify with and why. So let me rephrase that and get your answer on my rephrasing. Which other township board member do you most closely identify with and why?
I put down,
Your answer originally was yourself, for obvious reasons.
oh, yes, okay, I couldn't remember how I answered that, I've done a couple of these questionnaires. Yes, myself for obvious reasons. So the other one would probably be Gordy Bunch. He's a great leader for the township board. He's very knowledgeable, very in-depth, connected with the community. He can provide insight to many of the issues. He works very well with the township staff. He's always accessible from the phone. You know, if I have a question, I can email him or call him, and is very responsive. So I would say I look up to Gordy because he's a brilliant guy.
Okay, Bob?
I'm gonna pass.
That was easy.
Okay, how about this one? Will incorporation affect police or emergency services for the Woodlands coverage? If so, how?
Yes. So, yes and no. So, one of the things that we're evaluating in the study is, can we keep our contracted services with the sheriff's office? Answer is yes, but that's not how we're gonna probably want to do it long term, but you can't just flip a switch overnight and have a Woodlands Police Department. So one of the things that we're gonna have to do is come up with a plan where we kind of start phasing in, hiring people, training them, and then start taking over certain service areas. One of the drawbacks to having the sheriff's office enforcing the Woodlands is that they actually can't enforce any of our ordinances or covenants, unless it's a county ordinance or covenant, well, they have covenants, but the ordinances. So we need to make sure that, you know, when our residents are calling us about fireworks or noise violations, right now, our hands are tied, there's nothing we can do about it, but hopefully in that situation, we can have a Woodlands police force, or at least a marshal or someone who can go out there and assess fines or whatnot. Another good thing about the fines is everything that the sheriff's office is running right now goes to the county. But once we have our own internal police department, that'll go to us and our municipal courts.
Coming from a family of naval aviators, how in the world did you decide to get in the infantry?
Good question. My family asks me that at every get-together. So I was a Boy Scout, got my Eagle Scout, and I've always enjoyed hiking and camping. Boats, not so much, or planes, not so much. My brother's a naval flight instructor for the Navy. My father, both grandfathers were pilots, but my great-grandfather was a Army cavalry officer. He actually wrote the book on the Army cavalryman and his horse, and they still use it for the Army today. And he's got the Silver Star in the Philippines, hunted Pancho Villa across the Mexican border, and he's buried at Fort Bliss National Cemetery. I was honored to actually go see his grave during an annual training out there.
Wow.
So, but so that's my claim is like I'm the first one back to Texas, and I was in the infantry. So
That's not buried in Texas, the first one that's not buried here.
what's that?
So the first one that's not buried here in Texas, it came back, right?
Well, yes, first one to come back to Texas.
That's all I have.
You know, it sounds like there can be a lot of roadblocks to incorporating, and just thinking of what you said a while ago about the mud debts. How many muds are there?
I think about close to 18, I think. I don't know exactly that number off the top of my head,
Yeah.
but there are quite a few.
So you would, if you accepted any, you would have to pay off all their debts? Or
No. You wouldn't have to pay off all their debts. What you do is you'd have to distribute the tax evenly over everyone. So you look at like Mud District 2, which is one of the older sections in Grogan's Mill, they're paid off, they're done. Then you look at Creekside, that's brand new, has all this debt. So what you'd have to do is you'd have to, if you incorporated all of them, it would bring everyone down to the same playing field. So you get a lot of pushback from the people in Grogan's Mill who have already paid everything for their infrastructure. And then all these guys over here at Creekside would love it because all their bills would come down. So what we're looking at is a long-term plan where we can kind of find where, okay, Grogan's Mill's infrastructure is fading, we need to start reinvesting in there. And Creekside's coming down to the point where, you know, these two are kind of getting closer, then that would be the time to kind of incorporate and take all the muds in. Because you got all the guys in the middle who would at some point be on that scale as well.
So who would actually pay the debt? The mud would still exist, or?
All the muds,
city?
currently all the muds would still exist, but if we decided to bring them in, then they would become, you know, our water district, essentially, and then we'd take control.
Okay, but the city of the Woodlands would pay each of those mortgages, or that the.
We would get all the assets as well. So think of it as like a lateral transfer, it'd just be coming off their books onto ours, and then the cost would just be spread out, instead of all the muds individually for their jurisdictions, would all just be under one thing. So you'd actually save a lot of money in overhead, because you wouldn't have all these independent muds operating, you'd have.
But some people would be paying more and getting less. So you would have to balance that by
And that's the trick.
basically bribing the areas with new roads and bridges and stuff that had their debt paid off.
I don't agree with anything that you say with the bribe in it.
Just a step process.
It's a step process. It's a timing process too. You know, you really want to make it fair to all the residents, so you don't feel like, hey, we're really messing with these guys because they're already paid off and these guys are getting a solid deal over here. That's not good governance.
And paying off the debt is decades away, right, for some of those months?
Well, yeah, for the Creekside ones, yeah. Yeah, I got quite a bit.
Under the other category, what's your position on a performing arts center in the Woodlands? And what should the funding source be, and what percentage you indicated you are for the performing arts center, but reserving final judgment until I see the financial analysis? Should any monies come from the township, and should it be put aside for that purpose?
Possibly, again, it depends on, they're doing a cultural arts study right now. We did a needs assessment analysis a couple years ago, and one of the things that we found lacking that our residents wanted was a cultural arts center or kind of a science museum kind of thing. So one of the things we did was we hired Gensler to go out and kind of come up with some ideas, look at some options about what would fit for us. Right now, you have a lot of the Woodlands residents going downtown to go to see cultural arts theaters, there are cultural arts districts down there. So what we thought was, instead of giving them all the tax money and all the media, let's draw them up here. And they did a financial analysis that said that if you build a cultural arts center, you build something that can draw people in from the Conroe area, up by the Crichton Theater, to come down here. People will come and they'll dine here, they'll spend money here. We'll get a portion of the ticket sales. So they're still working on that financial analysis, but if the numbers look good that it will be revenue neutral in the future, then I could be convinced to vote for it.
Revenue neutral, meaning no monies from the township, or
Or we
you're gonna
recoup
get the tax
our
money
investment.
back, yeah.
I don't, yeah, I'm not gonna invest in
Okay.
our people's money in a sinking ship, you know?
Okay. No guarantees, right?
No guarantees. No, I'm not 100% one way or the other right now, just weighing the data.
Okay.
If I can
Absolutely.
chime in on that,
Yep.
if it's feasible, then why isn't private industry doing it? And why would government have to do it? If it's,
Exxon, Anadarko.
Those would actually be funding sources we'd be going out for. You know, we'd be looking for, we have a lot of people in the oil and gas industry who, I don't know how much I can say here, but there's a lot of interest in people contributing to those projects.
I understand,
Mhm.
but it's not government's responsibility to provide things like that. If it's feasible economically, it's gonna make money. Private industry would come in and build it and run it rather than government doing it for the people. That's not a constitutional requirement or basis for government to do.
So that way we don't get stuck with a skating rink scenario, right? Doesn't the township own part of that, or they put some money into that?
We did, yeah, and we own our parking garage over there.
So that's my question. If it's
No, that's fair.
if it's economically feasible, then why isn't private industry coming forth to do that instead of government doing it for us?
And that's a fair question. I would say that it's kind of an economic stimulus. We're in an interesting position here in the Woodlands because there's not a lot of land to develop. We do have some land that we could contribute towards it. I mean, I would love to see an option where we leased land and had a private entity come in and build it for us, you know, and then we just charge them, you know, $100 for this lot of land. They build it, they run it, they do everything. You know, we just lease the land out to them. But unfortunately, we haven't had anyone come and say, we want to build a museum or cultural arts theater, you know, so, and that's one of the things our residents are asking us for.
Okay. 3 years plus, and it isn't going away. Woodlands Parkway extension. You may not be at liberty to fully answer this question, but how far can you answer the question? Because you've mentioned in here, what are the 3 most pressing mobility issues? Number 1 was opposing Woodlands Parkway extension. Developers are gonna build it. What's your opinion? You say committed to using all legal means necessary to stop it. Do you think you've got a real chance of stopping that? You got a real strategy that you got high confidence in?
We'll see. I hate to ruin it, surprise ending.
Okay, well, like I said, you are at liberty to not elaborate.
I will say this, that you have a current board right now, myself included, who are going to fight tooth and nail, street fight if we need to make sure that does not come up, that does not get built. Metaphorically, you know.
I don't sell tickets, I'd be right.
But, I mean, I will exhaust no resource to try to make sure that doesn't happen. You know, that's one of the reasons that this incorporation, we're kind of hoping that everything looks good for us, because that'll be very easy. We just say, if we decide to incorporate, nope, we're not gonna do it.
Okay.
So, but those aren't all our eggs in one basket either. So.
Right. Up.
Okay. Well, if it is built, I mean, you know, that's how I got involved in all this process and dragged you into it too, as
Yes,
I
you did.
recall.
If you didn't know, John's the one who called me to
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And we did a lot of work to make sure that it didn't happen, and so it's very disheartening to see that it just keeps coming up. So if it is built, I know that they're saying, well, private contractors are gonna build it. I'm really concerned about the character of the Woodlands being ruined, mass transit coming through here, that sort of thing, because that was what was kind of being discussed back then. Have you seen any plans or anything? Because at one point they had a website up, if you recall, showing what the plans were looking like, and there was clear cutting trees and all kind of stuff. Have you seen any more of that as of lately? Plans? Are you not at liberty to discuss it?
Yeah, that's, I don't wanna go into anywhere where I might say too much, so. But let me just, like I said, it's,
I withdraw the question.
we're
Larry,
gonna work hard to make sure it does not happen.
and I'll work with you, you know I will.
So, the boats,
Yes,
how can we not ask the question of the boats? They're still there, what's the status of them and how much?
not for
money?
long, not for long. They're gonna be taken out very soon.
And we've explored all the possibilities of, because I know that was one of the
Yeah.
big things that George Mitchell's dream was, to have the waterway like the San Antonio, and
Yes.
we've had it, it didn't quite work out as good as San Antonio.
Correct, yes, Hurricane Harvey ruined the last couple working boats that we had. So the interesting thing about the boats is we actually got them no cost from the developers. They handed them off to us. I can't remember what year it was, but it was a few years back, and we actually didn't really want them, so we hired some people who were gonna operate them, and they were gonna basically take ownership of the boats over like a 5-year period, and each year they ran it, they would kind of get the boats a certain percentage of the ownership of the boats, but Hurricane Harvey just ended up wrecking them.
So,
And they were at the end of their lifespan as it was. It would have cost us, I believe, about $250,000 per boat just to get them, refurbished. And that's not including the cost to get them out, just to take them somewhere to get that done. And on top of that, they didn't even have the engines and the motors anymore. They don't even build them. There was a custom built engine that they even have to.
so
So,
there's probably not any future plans on having boats.
not currently. There was, we did,
Open it up
You
for
got
canoes.
boats.
Gondola business, man. Venice of Texas
What
going.
about Nelda's
That was actually
Boathouse over here?
What'd you say? What'd you say?
Nelda's,
What'd you say?
we are gonna send out a request for proposals for some certain companies. We actually sent one out. We hadn't received any serious considerations back. There were some people who wanted to do certain venues with like 6 to 12 people for corporate events, things like that. That's not a whole residence kind of
Did it
use
ever
for it.
break even?
We didn't lose any money on it. Like I said, we transferred it off to a captain and a business entity that was taking care of it at their own costs. So it wasn't a drain on the taxpayers at all.
No.
So it's gonna cost us probably to get the boats out of there, but you know, once that's done, I mean, we just wanna make sure we get them out before they sink.
How much you put on Craigslist?
No.
Salvage yard for the cost of towing.
I don't know.
Regarding the incorporation, did I understand you to say that the residents would be able to vote on their tax rate?
Yes.
It's gonna be like multiple choice?
So, and the reason we did this, it's a two-pronged approach. So in our enabling legislation, we made sure that we wanted to be totally transparent and truthful with what people were getting. So when they go and they decide, on the question, it's gonna say, are we gonna incorporate, this is the max tax rate possible that will be. And by that time, our financial analysis will be done, we'll have our contracts negotiated, with the sheriff's office or any other services that we provide. And they will actually, vote on their own tax rate, so.
Well, they will vote on the package of incorporating and a maximum tax. And they won't get to say, I want to incorporate, but I want a 10-cent tax.
Correct.
That's what we need. Okay.
But, I mean, you will know exactly what it is, I mean, what the worst case scenario it is,
And if you got a ballpark yet of how much that extra would be?
not yet. But like I said, we are putting money away, for incorporation fund to buffer any kind of unforeseen costs or any large costs that come through.
Okay.
But I mean, you look at infrastructure wise, we're looking pretty good as far as where we're built out right now, so I think we're doing okay.
Okay, what do you know about your opponent, Treva Tagliari, politically speaking?
I've been told that she is a Democrat. That's pretty much as I could find or have heard about her. I don't know that she's been active. I think she was on the, residential design committee for Sterling Ridge or Indian Spring, one of the two, but that's about it.
That's where Carol Stromat's from, Indian Springs.
Okay. Yep.
You stole my question, so I guess bottom line is you really don't know that much about your opponent.
That's correct.
You have not actually met them?
Yep.
Okay. Well,
Neither of them.
then
I thought it'd be weird if I showed up at the door.
Yeah.
Not done it.
Good thing.
Yeah.
Has she attended any meetings?
She attended the new candidate orientation for people who are looking to run for the first time. They get a kind of overview of the township and its services and things that are going on. So I've heard that she and Frank Dargavage both attended that meeting.
Is that it?
There's only
I
two.
guess that's the only two.
Yeah, John Brown's a wonderful part.
Those, put on. But
So we did the boats. How do you feel about the mounted patrol if you become incorporated? Are you gonna keep that? Is it gonna become part of?
You talking about the Alpha and Omega under patrol?
Right.
Again, it all depends if we incorporate. I mean, it's a whole new ballpark when you're looking at numbers. The financial decisions are not necessarily going to be what it was from year to year as a township. So we're going to have different needs and services. So
Is that a service that you can see that's gonna continue on, or would you have the cops out on bikes?
you know, the one thing I do like about the Alpha and Omega is that we get a lot of positive feedback from our residents. They do like the look and the feel. They have little cards for the kids for each horse that they hand out to them. And also they have, the eye line is, 2 car lengths stacked, so they can see a lot more of like a parking lot than you could from a bike. So they can actually see if someone's breaking in a car, doing something suspicious and call it in to local security. And if they investigate and find something going on, they can contact the police.
Have they been that effective cost-wise?
Again, it depends on what metric you're measuring it by. If you're measuring it by the crime rate, you can't really measure if they're deterring crime, because if they're there and someone's like, okay, I'm not gonna be here, I'm gonna go over here, you can't measure that, obviously. But two, the feedback that we've gotten from our residents, they think it's well worth it because they think it contributes to the ambiance of the field. We did cut their services a bit. We don't have them over in Costco or the Walmart on 242 anymore. So we trimmed them out of the last budget a little bit. We're keeping them around the mall and town center, I think, is the best place for them, because we see a lot of crime over in that area.
So only part of the Woodlands is covered then now?
Well, it's just the Costco area and 242 so far away from town center that we feel like that was just kind of where we want to keep our focus.
Who owns those?
Which one?
Alpha Omega.
I couldn't tell you.
Oh, okay.
Not that I couldn't, I don't know.
Quite right.
Wow. My turn? You and I have spoken a lot, and I know you're a big believer in term limits.
Yes.
But because of the sensitive place that we are with the Woodlands right now and the progression that we're going through, are you that rigid on term limits right now because of how this is going?
In what respect?
Well, you and I have talked a lot about term limits. You believe in term limits as I do. This will be your
Yes.
second term.
It will be.
So at a crucial time when everything's happening, you'll probably be coming up to the end of your second term.
Sure, great, yeah.
So do you think it's appropriate
So is
to
it a
turn around
question-
and hand the reins to a guy that walks right in
Will
the
I
door?
run for city council? I don't see that happening. Yeah. That's a full-time position. Once you become a city, that's, this is my volunteer job. I really enjoy this, but my true love is nursing. I like helping people and,
The city's gonna need a lot of nursing.
Different kind.
Terms, if incorporations push out.
for,
Thinking about.
I think 2 to 3 terms, for any candidate is long enough. I have a bad taste in my mouth when it comes to long-term career politicians. I think we've seen the bureaucracy that happens in Washington, and I don't wanna see that happen on a local or state level. I think, we need more people involved in the process, and I think not having term limits turns people off, because you have professional politicians who have been in the Senate for 40-plus years. Who thinks they can ever run against a behemoth like that with the cronies and lobbyists that have been funding their campaigns for that long? How many favors they own? So I think the turnover would be actually very good for our nation and communities.
Did you say you were running for 2 more years? The term's 2 years?
It's 2 years, yes.
Well, how come all positions aren't up? Some of them are 4 years.
It's a staggered election, so
Every year.
next year, in the off year, they have the 3, 5, 6, and 7 positions.
Okay. 2 years really doesn't seem like enough. How did that come about? Did somebody vote on it?
I think that's what they set up when they first started.
Okay. Real quick about the police contract. Do you know how much the contract is with the county?
Off the top of my head, we've been looking at so many incorporation numbers that
Do you think that the cost for creating your own police force, other than having a little bit of logistical transition?
I don't want to give you the wrong numbers, but we actually just went over this 2 months ago, and they were going to be talking about it at the forum.
Okay.
But the numbers, there are ways to do it. The one that we're looking at is a blended plan, where it's, we're gonna contract our services, but we're also gonna start training our own, because we're gonna have to buy equipment, well, we already own all the vehicles that they use, but we're gonna have to do all the baby steps necessary in order to create our own police force. So it's gonna be time and money. It's gonna be, versus just keeping the status quo, but I think our long-term objectives is what we're gonna need to do.
So you get service from the county under your contract. Is there separate service, or how's that all set? Because you also pay as residents county tax, right? That should give you some sheriff service without having to pay.
Yes, we do, and that's one of the things that residents brought up when we were actually doing the study, like, for instance, like jails, what access does Shenandoah have to county jails? What access do they have to our county SWAT, our K-9 units? So they don't pay any extra for those, so we wouldn't pay any extra for those as well.
Okay.
But you can see, this is shaping up to be a situation like they had down in Clear Lake, where you had a lot of overlapping police jurisdictions. Because you're
Yes.
gonna have Montgomery County Police Department, the Woodlands Police Department, Conroe PD, the
CISD
constable coming in here, the DPS right there. So I don't think there's gonna be any shortage of police coverage, regardless of what the contractual situation is here in the Woodlands. Does that seem like a fair assessment to you?
Yeah, we're gonna be safe, as safe or not safe as that, right? Is that the answer you're looking for?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Okay, we only have an hour more, so, no, just kidding. We're actually, this is it, we've wrapped up, time for your up to 5 minute closing.
Up to 5-minute closing, okay. Well, I guess I'll just close saying this, I ran on a platform to, keep taxes low or reduce them if we could. I've kept that promise. I've run on being a resident advocate. I've advocated for our residents, both on taxation, on incorporation, on opposing the Woodlands Parkway extension, on making our community more wholesome and happier, and right now people seem to be very happy. I've kept every promise that I've given, so I'm just asking for another term to see this incorporation through. And then I will term myself out, as I believe in term limits. So
Alrighty,
that's all I got.
thanks for coming in tonight.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Boniface.
Now that we're all